The mighty warship Imperial Dawn floated silently in the darkness of space, its pristine white hull reflecting the distant starlight. On its command bridge, Admiral Marcus stood with his hands clasped behind his back, his purple eyes fixed on the holographic display before him. The display showed unusual movement patterns at the edge of Imperial space, patterns that shouldn't exist in an unexplored sector. "Show me the data again," he ordered, his deep voice carrying the weight of 3 centuries of military experience. The young officer at the scanning station quickly brought up the readings from the past month. Small ships, primitive by Imperial standards, had been moving between several star systems. Their energy signatures were rough and unrefined, but they moved with purpose and precision. Most interesting was their speed. They were using some form of faster-than-light travel that the Empire's sensors couldn't quite understand. "Fascinating," Marcus muttered, stroking his gray-skinned chin. "A new spacefaring race, right on our doorstep. How did we miss them?" The answer came from his chief researcher, Dr. Lin, who had been studying the neighboring systems for the past week. "Sir, their technological advancement is unprecedented. Our historical scans from just 2 centuries ago showed them using primitive chemical rockets. Now they have FTL capability." Marcus raised an eyebrow ridge, a gesture his species had evolved to show surprise. 2 centuries. That's impossible. No race develops that quickly. But the evidence was right there in front of him. The scans didn't lie. This new species, which called themselves humans, had somehow compressed a millennium of technological development into just 200 years. The Admiral turned to his communications officer. "Send a priority message to the Imperial Council. They need to see this." 3 days later, in the grand halls of the Imperial Palace on Capital World, 12 beings sat around a massive crystalline table. They represented the highest authority in an empire spanning 1,000 star systems and 300 species. The council chamber's ornate walls, covered in the historical achievements of their civilization, seemed to watch as they discussed this new discovery. "Just another primitive race," declared Councillor Vex, his tentacles waving dismissively. "We've seen hundreds like them. They'll either join us or be crushed, like all the others." Admiral Marcus, standing before the council, shook his head. "With respect, Councillor, these humans are different. Their rate of advancement is unlike anything we've encountered. They've already established colonies in 17 systems, and our deep scans suggest they're preparing to expand into at least 30 more." 17 systems. Another councillor scoffed. "We control 1,000. They're insects compared to us." Marcus activated a hologram in the center of the room. It showed a human settlement on one of their colony worlds. Massive cities had been built in just decades. Factories produced ships at an alarming rate. Their population was growing exponentially. "Look at their industrial capacity," Marcus pointed out. "They build and adapt quickly. Their ships, while technologically inferior to ours, show remarkable innovation. They're using concepts our engineers have never considered." The council members watched the hologram with varying degrees of concern and dismissal. Most seemed to share Councillor Vex's opinion. This was just another species to either absorb into the Empire or eliminate. "What do you suggest, Admiral?" asked the council leader, her crystalline form shimmering in the chamber's light. "We should approach them carefully," Marcus replied. "Study them more before making contact. Their rapid advancement suggests a highly adaptable and potentially dangerous species if provoked." Laughter echoed through the chamber. "Dangerous? To the Empire?" Councillor Vex rose from his seat. "We have ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years. Our fleets are invincible. Our technology is supreme. These humans will kneel before us, just like all the others." The council voted quickly after that. They would send a diplomatic vessel to establish contact, as they had done hundreds of times before. The humans would be offered the standard choice: join the Empire as a vassal species or face annihilation. As Admiral Marcus left the council chamber, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were making a terrible mistake. Something about these humans worried him. Perhaps it was their impossible rate of advancement, or the unusual designs of their ships, or the way they fearlessly pushed into the unknown. May the ancestors help us, he whispered to himself, if we're underestimating them. Little did he know, his words would soon prove prophetic, and the mighty Galactic Empire was about to learn a harsh lesson about humanity's potential. The diplomatic vessel Star Messenger emerged from hyperspace at the edge of human territory. It was a beautiful ship, its silver hull decorated with the ancient symbols of the Empire's peaceful intentions. Inside, Imperial Delegate Ross adjusted his ceremonial robes, practicing the condescending smile he had used countless times before when dealing with primitive species. "Sir," his assistant reported, "the humans have responded to our communication. They're sending a ship to meet us." Ross nodded, already bored with the procedure. He had done this hundreds of times. Arrive, impress the primitives with the Empire's power, and watch them submit. It was always the same. The human ship that appeared surprised him. It was smaller than the Star Messenger, but sleek and purposeful, with clean lines and powerful engines. No needless decoration, no wasted space. Just pure function. "Interesting design," muttered Captain Wells, the Star Messenger's commander. "Their engineering is efficient." The human vessel docked smoothly with the Star Messenger. Ambassador James stepped aboard, accompanied by 2 aides. Ross had expected to see nervousness or awe on their faces. Instead, he saw only calm professionalism. They met in the grand conference room. Ross sat on an elevated chair, while lower seats were provided for the humans, a traditional show of Imperial dominance. Ambassador James looked at the lower seats, then calmly took out his own folding chair from a case one of his aides carried. He set it up at equal height with Ross's chair and sat down. His aides did the same. Ross felt his first flicker of annoyance. No species had ever dared to do that before. "Welcome," Ross began, forcing his practiced smile. "The Galactic Empire greets the human species. We have watched your development with great interest." "Thank you," James replied simply. "We've been aware of your observation posts for some time. We were wondering when you'd make contact." Ross's smile faltered slightly. They had known they were being watched. As is customary, Ross continued, "We offer humanity the privilege of joining our great empire. Under our guidance, your species will." "No, thank you," James interrupted politely. Ross blinked all 4 of his eyes. "I don't think you understand. This isn't a request. The Empire rules this sector of space. All species either join us, or what?" James asked, still perfectly calm. "Or they are removed," Ross said coldly. "The Empire has done this for 10,000 years. Resistance is pointless." Ambassador James leaned forward slightly. "Let me be clear, Delegate Ross. Humanity has no interest in becoming servants to your empire. We're happy to establish diplomatic relations as equals, to trade, to share knowledge. But we will not submit." Ross stood up, his robes flowing dramatically. "You dare? Your primitive species barely understands space travel. Your technology is centuries behind ours. Your ships are toys compared to our mighty fleets." "Perhaps," James said, standing as well. "But I advise you to look more carefully at what you dismiss as primitive. We've achieved in 2 centuries what took your empire a millennium. Ask yourself why." "Is that a threat?" Ross hissed. "Not at all. It's a friendly warning." James smiled, but there was steel behind it. "Humanity doesn't want war. But if you force one upon us, you'll learn very quickly why we advanced so fast. The Empire does not tolerate such insolence." Ross shouted, "You have 1 standard day to reconsider. Accept our generous offer, or face the consequences." James nodded to his aides, and they began packing up their chairs. "We knew this might happen. That's why we've spent the last 5 years preparing. You should know that we've already moved our colonies out of your sensor range. The systems you've been watching are mostly automated now." Ross felt a chill. That explained the strange readings their scouts had reported recently. "One last thing," James said as he reached the door. "We've studied your empire's history thoroughly. You always follow the same pattern. Send the diplomats, then send a small fleet to punish resistance, then send the full armada. You might want to reconsider that strategy this time." After the humans left, Ross immediately sent an emergency message to the Imperial Council. These humans needed to be taught a harsh lesson about defying the Empire. In his private quarters, he drafted battle plans for what he assumed would be a quick and simple military operation. The Empire would crush these upstart humans, just as they had crushed hundreds of species before. But somewhere in the back of his mind, a small voice wondered why Ambassador James had seemed so confident. What did the humans know that the Empire didn't? The Imperial battle fleet dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation. 50 warships, their silver hulls gleaming against the darkness, moved toward the human colonies. Fleet Commander Turner watched from the bridge of his flagship, Imperial Might, as his ships spread out in the standard attack pattern they had used successfully for centuries. "No signs of enemy vessels," reported his sensor officer. "The human colonies appear undefended." Turner smiled. This would be even easier than he had expected. These humans had been all talk after all. "Begin the standard intimidation bombardment," he ordered. "Target their orbital infrastructure first." The first volley of energy beams streaked toward the human space stations, but instead of exploding, the beams passed right through them. "Sir," the sensor officer shouted, "they're holograms. The stations aren't real." Suddenly, alarms blared across the fleet. Small objects, previously hidden among orbital debris, activated and swarmed toward the Imperial ships. Each object was barely larger than a shuttle. "Dismiss those toys," Turner commanded. "Our shields can handle anything these primitives throw at us." The small human vessels didn't fire energy weapons. Instead, they released clouds of what looked like metallic dust. The Imperial crews watched in confusion as the dust surrounded their ships. "Sir, the dust, it's eating through our shields." Panic filled the sensor officer's voice. "It's some kind of self-replicating nanomaterial." Before Turner could respond, space itself seemed to tear open around his fleet. Hundreds of human warships emerged from what looked like holes in reality. Not hyperspace windows, but something entirely different. "Impossible," Turner whispered. "Our sensors would have detected them gathering." Admiral Marcus, watching from the Imperial dawn at a safe distance, finally understood. The humans hadn't been rushing to develop Imperial-style technology. They'd been developing their own path, creating weapons and tactics the Empire had never imagined. The human ships were smaller than Imperial vessels, but incredibly fast. They didn't move like normal ships. They seemed to twist space around themselves, appearing and disappearing at will. Their weapons didn't rely on brute force, but on clever tricks that bypassed Imperial defenses completely. "Send the distress signal," Turner ordered as his fleet began to fall apart. The nanomaterial dust had disabled shield systems across half his ships. Human vessels appeared literally inside the Imperial formation, their strange drives ignoring all known laws of space combat. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the human fleet," his communication officer reported. A familiar face appeared on the main screen. "Ambassador James, we warned you," he said simply. "This is only a fraction of our capabilities. Withdraw now, and we can still avoid further bloodshed." Turner stood from his command chair, rage burning in his eyes. "The Empire does not retreat. All ships, maximum firepower. Show these primitives our true strength." The Imperial ships fired everything they had. Energy beams and plasma torpedoes filled space and passed harmlessly through the human fleet. "Holograms again," Marcus muttered to himself as he watched. "They're all holograms." The real human ships struck from completely different positions. Strange weapons shut down Imperial engines. Mysterious fields disrupted their artificial gravity. Some ships simply vanished, transported to empty sectors of space thousands of light years away. Within 20 minutes, the pride of the Imperial fleet was in ruins. Half the ships were disabled, a quarter had vanished, and the rest were trying desperately to retreat. This is a message to the Imperial Council. Ambassador James broadcast on all frequencies. We could have destroyed your entire fleet. Instead, we chose to demonstrate only a small part of our defensive capabilities. The ships we transported away will return to Imperial space safely in one day. Consider this a lesson about underestimating humanity. As the surviving Imperial ships limped away, Admiral Marcus ordered his crew to prepare a full report. For the first time in 300 years, an Imperial fleet had been completely defeated, and somehow he knew this was only the beginning. In the wreckage of the battle, small human ships were already appearing, helping evacuation efforts for the damaged Imperial vessels. Even in victory, they showed mercy. Another concept the Empire had forgotten long ago. The Imperial Council's emergency meeting was interrupted by another alert. On the massive holographic display, a new human fleet had appeared deep inside Imperial territory. It was the fourth such attack this week. "Impossible," shouted Councillor Vex, his tentacles writhing in anger. "We have defenses. We have patrol fleets. How do they keep getting past them?" Admiral Marcus, now the Empire's chief military advisor, pointed to the display. "They're using something new. Our scientists call it quantum tunneling. The humans can essentially dig tunnels through space itself." The Council watched as the human ships performed their now familiar dance of destruction. They would appear suddenly, strike at critical targets, and vanish before the Imperial response fleets could arrive. This time, they had destroyed a major fuel production facility. "Show them the new data," Marcus ordered his aide. Fresh images appeared, showing human ships in action. They moved like nothing the Empire had ever seen. When Imperial ships fired at them, the humans didn't dodge. They simply weren't there when the shots arrived. They seemed to exist in multiple places at once, making it impossible to predict where they would strike. "Their technology doesn't make sense," one of the Imperial scientists complained. "They're not following any of the standard development paths. Every species we've encountered developed energy weapons, then shields, then faster-than-light travel. But humans, they've created things we've never even imagined." Reports flooded in from across Imperial space. Human raids had destroyed shipyards, weapons factories, and fuel depots. But strangest of all, they never attacked civilian targets. They evacuated Imperial citizens before destroying military installations. They provided medical aid to damaged Imperial ships, even while fighting them. "They're making us look weak," Vex raged. "They're showing our own people that we can't protect them." "No," Marcus corrected. "They're showing our people that they're not the mindless barbarians our propaganda claims. Every act of mercy, every civilian they spare, every injured soldier they help, it all spreads doubt about the Empire's message." A holographic display updated again, showing new Imperial fleet movements. The Empire had gathered its largest battle group ever. 10,000 ships, ready to crush the human threat once and for all. "This ends now," declared the Council leader. "We will destroy their main worlds. Show everyone what happens when you defy the Empire." Marcus tried to object, but the Council ignored him. The massive Imperial armada moved toward the known human systems, ready for the final battle. What they found shocked them all. The human colonies were gone. Not destroyed, simply moved. Entire planets had been shifted through space, relocated to unknown locations. In their place were automated defense systems that turned the Imperial fleet's own weapons against them. "How?" the Council leader demanded. "How can they move planets?" Before anyone could answer, new alerts flashed. Human ships had appeared simultaneously at 30 different locations across Imperial space. But this time, they didn't just raid and run. They stayed, establishing stable quantum tunnels that more ships could pass through. "They're not just raiding anymore," Marcus realized. "This is a full invasion." The Empire's response fleets found themselves overwhelmed by human tactics. they couldn't understand or counter. Human ships would split into multiple copies, each one real enough to cause damage. Their weapons ignored shields completely, using principles of physics the Empire had never discovered. "Send everything we have," Vex demanded. "Every ship, every soldier." But the Empire's mighty military machine, designed to crush primitive civilizations through sheer force, found itself helpless against human ingenuity. The humans didn't fight like a primitive species desperately resisting extinction. They fought like they had been preparing for this war for years, carefully studying the Empire's weaknesses. In the council chamber, Marcus watched the reports of defeat after defeat pour in. The Empire had awakened something they didn't understand: humanity's full potential. And now, they were paying the price for their arrogance. "We never had a chance," he murmured. They weren't developing slowly. They were studying us, preparing, waiting for us to make exactly this mistake. The Empire's greatest defeat had only just begun. The great halls of the Imperial Palace, once a symbol of unshakable power, now echoed with the sounds of chaos. Emergency alarms blared as reports of new disasters arrived every hour. Admiral Marcus watched from his command center as the empire he had served for 3 centuries began to crack apart. "Another vassal world has declared independence," his aide reported, marking another system red on the giant star map. "The rock people of Sigma 9. They're requesting human protection." Marcus nodded grimly. The rock people had been loyal Imperial subjects for 2,000 years. Now they, like dozens of other species, had seen the Empire's weakness and chosen to break free. "Show me the latest battle footage," he ordered. The display showed an Imperial battle group trying to copy human tactics. They had built smaller, faster ships and attempted the same quick-strike attacks that humans used so effectively. The result was a disaster. Without understanding the principles behind human technology, they were just making themselves easier targets. In the Imperial Council chamber, the crisis was reaching a breaking point. "We must use the planet killers." Councillor Vex slammed his tentacles on the table. "Destroy a few human worlds. Show them our true power." "We can't find their worlds," another councillor shot back. "They've hidden them all." "Then burn every system they might be using. Destroy everything." Admiral Marcus stepped forward. "And what of our own people living in those systems? The humans have been spreading their influence, helping our citizens, showing them kindness while we talk about destroying entire worlds." The council leader's crystalline form flickered with anger. "Are you defending these primitives?" "Admiral, I am trying to save the Empire," Marcus replied firmly. "We're fighting this war wrong. The humans don't think like us. They don't fight like us. Every time we use our traditional tactics, they defeat us. Every time we show cruelty, they show mercy, and our own people are noticing." A junior officer burst into the chamber, breaking all protocol. "Emergency report. The humans, they're broadcasting on all frequencies, all channels, to every world in Imperial space." The council chamber's main screen activated. Ambassador James appeared, his calm face now familiar to every Imperial citizen. "People of the Empire," he began, "we want peace. We have never wanted war. Your leaders attacked us because we refuse to be slaves. But we don't want to destroy the Empire. We want to free it." The broadcast showed scenes from human worlds, cities where different species lived as equals, fleets where former Imperial citizens served alongside humans, scientific centers where human and alien researchers worked together, sharing knowledge freely. "Your Empire's leadership has lied to you," James continued. "They claim we are primitives, yet they cannot defeat us. They claim we are barbarians, yet we protect your civilians while they talk of destroying whole worlds. They claim they bring order, yet their only response to anything new is violence." Marcus watched the council's reactions. Some were furious, others afraid, and a few thoughtful. "To all species under Imperial rule," James went on, "we offer friendship, not as masters or slaves, but as equals. To the Empire's military forces, we offer honorable peace, and to the Imperial Council, we offer one last chance to end this conflict before more lives are lost. The broadcast ended, but its effect was immediate. Communications from across Imperial space showed crowds gathering, people demanding answers from their rulers. "This is a trick," Vex shouted. "They're weakening us with lies." "No," Marcus said quietly. "They're winning without fighting, just as they planned from the start." The council erupted into arguments. Some wanted to surrender, others to fight to the death. The Empire's rigid structure, which had endured for 10,000 years, was dissolving in the face of something it had never encountered before, an enemy that didn't want to conquer them, but to change them. As Marcus left the chamber, he realized that the humans' greatest weapon wasn't their advanced technology or superior tactics. It was hope. Hope for something better than the Empire's eternal hierarchy of masters and servants. The next few days would determine whether the Empire could adapt or would destroy itself trying to maintain its old ways. The Imperial shipyards at Beta Station had been the pride of the Empire for 5,000 years. Massive construction docks stretched for hundreds of kilometers through space, building the warships that had conquered 1,000 worlds. Now they burned. Human ships had appeared from nowhere, their quantum tunnels opening directly inside the shipyard's defensive perimeter. But this time, they weren't alone. Ships of dozens of different designs flew alongside them, vessels from former Imperial vassal races who had joined the human cause. "Status report," Councillor Vex demanded, watching the battle from his command center on Beta Station. "We've lost 60% of the shipyards," his officer reported. "The humans, they're not just destroying things. They're stealing our newest ships, our prototype weapons, everything." Vex slammed his tentacles against his control panel, launched the automated defense fleet, used the new copies of human technology. The Empire's latest weapons powered up, ships they had built by studying destroyed human vessels and captured technology. They looked like human ships, but something was wrong. As they engaged the enemy fleet, they moved clumsily, like children trying to copy a master dancer. "Sir," another officer called out, "we're detecting quantum tunnels opening inside Beta Station itself." Before Vex could respond, the station's power went dead. Emergency lights flickered on, revealing human soldiers in advanced combat suits materializing throughout the command center. They moved with impossible speed, their armor seeming to bend light around them. "Councillor Vex," a familiar voice called. Ambassador James stepped through a shimmering portal, flanked by soldiers. "I believe it's time we had another talk." Meanwhile, in the Imperial capital, Admiral Marcus received the news he had been waiting for. Beta Station had fallen, and with it, the Empire's main shipbuilding capacity. But more importantly, Councillor Vex, the main voice for continuing the war, was now in human custody. "Sir," his most trusted aide whispered, "the loyal commanders are in position. They await your signal." Marcus nodded slowly. After 3 centuries of service, he was about to commit treason. But it was treason to save the Empire, not destroy it. "Send the signal," he ordered. "Operation New Dawn begins now." Across Imperial space, carefully positioned military commanders acted simultaneously. Ships changed course. Troops secured strategic positions. The pattern looked random at first, but it was carefully planned. A net closing around the hardline council members who wanted to fight to the end. In the council chamber, the remaining leaders argued frantically. "We still have the planet killers," one shouted. "We can still." The chamber's doors burst open. Admiral Marcus entered, followed by troops loyal to him. But they weren't alone. Behind them came Imperial citizens, representatives from dozens of species that had served the Empire for millennia. "The planet killers have been secured," Marcus announced, "along with all other superweapons. This war ends today." "This is treason." The council leader's crystalline form flashed with rage. "No," Marcus replied calmly. "This is evolution. The Empire must change or die. The humans have shown us a better way. On screens throughout Imperial space, a new message played. It showed Marcus speaking alongside Ambassador James and representatives from former vassal species. People of the Empire, they announced together, the war is over. The old council is being removed. A new government will be formed, one where all species have a voice. The humans and their allies have agreed to help us rebuild, not as conquerors, but as partners. At Beta Station, Councillor Vex watched bitterly as human engineers began repairing the damage from the battle, working alongside his own people. "I don't understand," he said to Ambassador James. "You could have destroyed us completely. Why show mercy?" James smiled. "Because that's not who we are. Humanity learned long ago that the strongest civilizations are built on cooperation, not domination. We fought you not to destroy the Empire, but to free it, even from itself." The Empire's fall had become its salvation, and the species it had once dismissed as primitives had become its teachers in building a better future. 1 year after the fall of the old Imperial Council, the capital world buzzed with activity. Ships from 100 different species filled the skies, their designs ranging from sleek human vessels to the organic ships of the freed vassal races. On the surface, the once forbidden Imperial Palace had been transformed into the Hall of Cooperation. Inside the great chamber where the Council once ruled, Admiral Marcus, now first speaker of the reformed empire, stood before representatives of all member species. The chamber had been rebuilt, removing the old hierarchical design where the Council had sat above everyone else. Now all seats were on the same level, arranged in a circle to symbolize equality. "The last of the hardline Imperial forces surrendered this morning," Marcus announced. "The transition is complete." Ambassador James, now serving as humanity's permanent representative, nodded in approval. "And the technology sharing program?" "Exceeding expectations," replied a scientist from one of the former vassal races. "Human quantum tunneling technology, combined with Imperial energy systems and drift people navigation methods, has created possibilities we never imagined. We're accomplishing more together than any of us could alone." The meeting was interrupted by an urgent message. Long-range sensors had detected massive fleet movements from the Dragon Empire, a rival power that had watched the recent conflict with great interest. "They're testing us," Marcus observed. "They think the reformed empire is weak after the war." Ambassador James smiled. "Should we show them what humanity and a reformed empire can do together?" A joint fleet assembled within hours, human ships, reformed Imperial vessels, and craft from dozens of allied species. They used their combined technologies in ways that would have been impossible a year ago. When the Dragon Empire's probe fleet arrived, they found defenses that made the old empire's military look primitive. "Message from the Dragon Empire," a communications officer announced. They're requesting diplomatic contact. They want to discuss trade agreements." Laughter filled the chamber. The dragons had clearly learned from the old empire's mistake. Better to approach this new power as friends than risk becoming its enemies. Later that day, Marcus and James walked through the capital city's streets, where once Imperial troops would have kept different species separate, now all mingled freely. Markets sold goods from across the galaxy. Schools taught the sciences and arts of 100 worlds. "Did you plan all this from the start?" Marcus asked. "The way you fought the war, showed mercy, encouraged rebellion. Was it all planned?" James considered the question. "We knew the empire could be more than what it was. Humanity's own history taught us that empires built on fear and dominance eventually fall. But those built on cooperation, mutual respect, and shared progress can last forever." And now, Marcus looked up at the sky, where ships of the Joint Fleet patrolled. "What happens next?" "Now we grow together," James replied. "There are whole regions of the galaxy yet to be explored, mysteries to be solved, challenges that will require all our combined knowledge and skills." A group of children ran past them, human, Imperial, and former vassal species all playing together. They were using toys that simulated quantum tunneling, jumping through miniature portals, and laughing. "That's the real victory," James said, watching them. "Not defeating the old empire, but creating something better for the next generation." In distant parts of the galaxy, other empires received reports about what had happened. They learned of a primitive species that had turned a mighty empire's strength against itself, not through superior force, but through superior thinking. They learned of mercy where cruelty was expected, of unity where division was the norm. And they learned to fear humanity, not for its weapons or its technology, but for its ability to turn enemies into allies and transform the very nature of what they fought against. The final report sent to all other galactic powers contained a simple warning: do not mistake humanity's kindness for weakness. They defeated the mightiest empire in known space, not by becoming better warriors, but by becoming better civilizers. They are most dangerous not when they fight as enemies, but when they offer to become friends. In the newly renamed Hall of Cooperation, the representatives of 1,000 worlds began planning their shared future, while high above, the combined fleet stood ready to defend not an empire of fear, but a union of hope.